Hey everyone, this is Jace Bain of the Jace Sits podcast, back for week 3, 91.3 FM, RSU Radio, and as ever, we are in the beautiful Filmmakers Ranch in Oklahoma City. Today, we've got an interview I simply don't deserve. It is the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. We talked about so many interesting things. Yes, The Wizard of Oz. Yes, A Star is Born, and so much more. Do you know that famous story about the red ruby slippers being stolen? Well, that was actually this museum, and we're going to get into all of that today on Jace Sits. So enjoy. Here's the interview. Hello, everyone. This is Jace Bain of the Jace Sits podcast, and we have another fantastic conversation today. I am joined by Executive Director Janie Heights and Curator John Kelsch of the Judy Garland Museum. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm so thankful to have you all with us today. Now, first off, I understand that the Judy Garland Museum was one of the first celebrity museums to ever open. Is that true?
Yes. It opened in 1975, so this is our 50th anniversary.
Fascinating. Congratulations. Judy Garland's restored childhood home is located on the property of the museum. Could you share some insight into her upbringing and her earliest years in the entertainment industry, please?
Well, she was the youngest of 3 daughters of Frank and Ethel Gum, who ran the New Grand Theater in Grand Rapids, Minnesota for 12 years. And so at the age of 2.5, she made her first scheduled stage performance at a theater. And that's exactly 100 years ago. It was December 1924.
And is it true that you, John, supervised the house's restoration?
Yes. Back in 1994 and 95.
What was that like? What did that take?
Well, we couldn't have done it without the house detective from St. Paul, Minnesota, Jim Szewicz. And he lives in the oldest remaining home in the city of St. Paul.
Thank you. Now let's switch gears if we could. What are some of the key exhibits from inside the Judy Garland Museum? What can us fans expect when we walk in the door?
Well, Janie, why don't you go into that?
Sure. Yeah. So the main highlight is for sure Judy's childhood home. It's been restored to look like it did when the Gum family lived in it back in the 1920s. So that was that to me, that is the main highlight, is her child connected to a larger museum that has a gallery that has artifacts from her life. Some of the highlights in the gallery include the original carriage from The Wizard of Oz, a Winky spear from the Witch's Castle in The Wizard of Oz, and then we have a test dress from The Wizard of Oz that Judy would have worn. It didn't make screen, it didn't make the movie, but something that she wore. We have many personal items of hers that have been donated. I don't know, John, do you have any other things to add? Any other items?
No, I think you've hit the highlights.
Yeah, those are the main highlights, and it's just a really warm, inviting museum, and it's connected to a children's museum as well. So it's a great place for people of all ages to come and experience. We have interactive play for children along with the Judy Garland Museum, so it's a really fun place to come check out.
I came across this video online which was showcasing a Judy's stage makeup kit, which is currently on display in the museum. Could you all share a little bit of backstory on this piece? I thought it was very interesting.
That was purchased by a well-known collector on the East Coast and donated to our museum. He bought it at auction, and we don't have much history on it.
Okay, all right, thank you. For our younger audience, people that might not be familiar, could we talk a little bit about Judy getting cast in The Wizard of Oz? Because I understand it was a very long process, multiple stars considered, including Shirley Temple. What was that like for her?
Well, initially, Well, by the way, Shirley Temple was a huge Wizard of Oz fan. She read all the books. She kept them in her bedroom. And so Shirley personally really wanted to play the role, but she was not available to be loaned out to MGM Studio. And so they immediately chose Judy Garland, one of MGM's contract players.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, now I have to ask about the 2005 robbery that took place at the Judy Garland Museum, which resulted in you all losing a pair of ruby slippers for many, many years. And just now, the story has a brand new ending. Could you guys talk about what's been going on with that, whatever details you can share?
You know, the first time that the ruby slippers came to Grand Rapids, Minnesota was in 1989. John put together, and the community put together, a massive Wizard of Oz parade and festival that happened in our town. It was like 10 days long, right, John?
Yes.
Yeah, 10 days long. Mickey Rooney came. He was able to find the ruby slippers. Michael Shaw, who is the actual owner of the slippers, brought them here for the first time in 1989. And so fast forward to 2005, it was the fourth time they had been on exhibit at the museum. And prior to that, Michael Shaw just brought them himself. And this arrangement in 2005 was that he would leave them with us for the summer. And, a couple days before he was scheduled to fly out to get them, they were stolen from an emergency door at the museum, never to be seen again until 2018. And as of now, so the local Grand Rapids Police Department stuck with the case for many, many years, right, following all the tips and leads. And finally, Brian Mattson, he got a tip and followed it and was pretty sure it was legitimate, but it was a bigger operation than he could handle, so he got the FBI involved. And it took about a year-long situation that they orchestrated a sting operation in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And they were able to recover the stolen pair of ruby slippers. They were then went into the FBI custody to solve the case. So our local police's job was to find the slippers, and then it was the FBI's job to solve the case on whodunit. So there is now some resolution. Terry John Martin was sentenced on January 29th, 2024. So a little over a year ago. And actually, on February 1st, 2024, we were able to host a reunion ceremony with the owner, Michael Shaw, the FBI, the Grand Rapids Police Department, and the museum. We hosted them at the museum to return the slippers to Michael Shaw. And now Michael just recently put them up for auction, and they sold for $28 million, and after buyer's premium, $32.5 million.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us, and I'm glad the story got a good ending.
Yeah, it's great that there's some resolution there.
Well, now let's talk about one of my personal favorite Judy Garland films, A Star is Born. What could fans of that film find inside of the Judy Garland Museum?
We have one of the hats she wore. I think an original script, yeah. The original script that her husband, Sid Luft, gave her.
Yep. And then
it's signed.
We have several images too, some posters and
original posters from 1954.
Yeah.
And I understand that the filming process on that film, A Star is Born, was very, very hard on Judy.
It was at times, yeah. It went over schedule in time.
Well, switching gears now to the Children's Discovery Museum, which is available on the same property. What can visitors expect to experience there next to the Judy Garland Museum?
Yeah, so lots of fun things. We have like I said, it's an interactive children's museum. It's meant to be a place of just learning through play and open exploration. So we have, when you walk in to the museum, we have a yellow brick road that welcomes people. And you can choose to go left to the Judy Garland Museum or right to the Children's Museum, or you can do both. And in the Children's Museum, we have this really great area we call Lake Life. Up here in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, we have 1,000 lakes in our county, and so we sort of took that and ran with it to make it interactive for children. So we have a fishing pier, a boat, a yurt that you can climb up into, a pretend cabin, a campfire, a stage where you can perform and have musical instruments and costumes. We have a kid-sized town with different shops that they can go into. And then we now have a new bear cave that they can crawl through and pretend to be an animal, and they can see the night sky. And then we have an art room. We do a lot of field trips as well during the school year for different school groups that bus in from all over the northern part of Minnesota. So really something for everybody here.
Yes, it immerses children in educational play with broad themes of arts, science, and the natural environment.
Yeah, and Judy... Yeah, and as John has told me, Judy Garland loved children and always had it in her dreams to either open a children's hospital or support children's hospitals. And so we think she would be proud to have a children's museum connected to her museum.
Well, that ties beautifully into my next question. Your website mentions that both centers were constructed with all ages in mind. And I wanted to ask you if there are a lot of younger people coming to visit and learn about Judy and the Wizard of Oz and everything.
Yeah, so we hosted... Go ahead, John.
Yeah. Well, we asked our first and second grade classes that arrive on field trips, how many of you have seen the movie The Wizard of Oz? And on average, I'd say between 6, 7, 8, always out of 10, raise their hands. And the Library of Congress says The Wizard of Oz is the most watched film in all movie history.
And so oftentimes at our museum, the Judy house is called Dorothy's house. So the little kids, especially locally, it's become known as Dorothy's house. And so they like to go check it out. It has a lot of old stuff in it. And so we actually use it for educational purposes to talk about like what a phone was back in 1920 and now what a phone looks like now in 2025. So we use it for educational purposes and just enjoyment. We have Judy music playing in it all the time, and it's just a really warm space for people to enjoy.
Now I think it's clear just how much of a valuable experience both museums are to the public, and I have to ask you, how can fans like myself get involved and support your mission?
Yeah, so we actually have two websites, judygarlandmuseum.com, www.judygarlandmuseum.com, and then the other one for the Children's Museum is cdmkids.org. We are on social media platforms as well, so you can check out our websites. There's a donate page on each of them, and there's a link to each other's websites on each of them, so you can get from one to the other. So otherwise, yeah, you can check us out on Facebook is one of the main platforms we use. We're just grateful to have an audience and we've been serving our region. I mean, Judy has been 50 years, and then the Children's Museum started in about 2004, 2005, so celebrating about 20 years with that as well. So just a great resource to the community and fun place to come check out.
Well, hey, Janie and John, thank you so much for being a part of our episode today. Just before we wrap up, real quick, what are y'all's favorite Judy Garland films?
Mine is Wizard of Oz.
Mine is Star is Born.
Mine too. Thank you so much once again for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to do this.
Thank you for having us. Hope to see you someday.
Yes, hopefully I'll get down there one day. Thank y'all.
And there you have it, my interview with the Judy Garland Museum out of Grand Rapids, Minnesota. I cannot thank them enough for being a part of this episode and this podcast. What a fascinating conversation, without a doubt. The threshold to hit coming up. Next week, I'll be right here talking about Johnny Cash. Can you believe it? We're going to be talking to the Johnny Cash boyhood home in Dice, Arkansas. And that's a very fun conversation. So subscribe, follow all the social media channels. They're all below. Donate where you can. Help everybody out. I'll see you next week. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.